Alright, I am Matt Lighty, and this is going to be a long and rambly video, probably. 3.1 brought a lot of cool shit for Atlas and Abyss League, which is staying, by the way. I'll make a video on that, maybe also. But the whole thing is, Ascendancies are fucking integral part of the game. Big controversial topic. There's a large power gap between some of them. By the way, I'm using peeweeplanner.com. That's what I like it better than anything else, so that's what I'm using. And there is a bunch of Ascendancies, 3 for each class, and then Scion has this weird random shit where she has a bunch of little offshoots. But they're allegedly being revamped, major Ascendancy overhaul in 3.2, which is about a month and change away. So I'm going to go over every single Ascendancy, what I think is good or bad about them, what I think is lazy or creative about them. Just talk about each one, and then things I'd like to see at the moment. So I guess we'll just we'll start with Scion, because she is the alpha and the omega of all of them. Now, Scion's an interesting one because she has the option of having more range in the tree. When you have the Path of the Shadow, Path of the Witch, you could start and allocate points in their starting area. This isn't that important anymore. And the reason is because previously, traveling across the tree was a lot more difficult and a lot more important than it is today. At the moment, it's more about efficiency than keystones. People don't really need CI. People don't really use Eldritch Battery. Ancestral Bond, if you're a totem build, you're already going to be over there. Like, you don't need to travel as much. There's not much more things you need to really go and grab. So it kind of loses some of its luster. That's also why they gave it a bunch of passive points. So if you're playing, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 passive points. If you're playing a Scion, additional. So I guess that's the big draw, honestly, at the moment. Also because some of the micro classes, since, let me just say straight off the bat, no build really needs Ascendancies at the moment. There's been so much power leap with uniques, with revamping of abilities, more multiplier support gems, not to mention Abyss Jewels. And basically, we as a player and as a character have gotten 1,000% stronger when the game has only gotten about 200% stronger since 1.3. So we don't even need Ascendancies. Like, I've played, like, during Mayhem, I just was level 85 as a Marauder because, it doesn't even matter. Like, honestly, like, it's nice if you're making so build that revolve around it. I wouldn't play a Summoner and not be a Necromancer, but you don't even need it. Honestly, you really don't. It's just, we're too strong. We're way too strong for how weak the enemy is. So, yeah, because of that, Scion has a lot of attractive things, a lot of little micro connections you can make. For example, if you just playing a build and all you want is a little bit more damage, a little bit leech, Berserker's fine. If you just want crit and crit damage power charges, Assassin's the way to go. If you just want a little bit more move speed and flask effectiveness, go Pathfinder. But there's some things that do benefit in Scion from being just a build enabling thing. One of them is putting totems in your helmet. Lets you get, instead of a 4-link totem, 2 of them. Lets you get 3 5-link totems. You have stuff like Guardian. So if you're playing a Curse immune cap build, so maybe one of the Soul Mantle Key Kizaru builds, you got Guardian. Like, there's some things that are quite strong. Or, if Reflect was still a thing, which it isn't, Elementalist exists, and so does Slayer for that. Overall, I think Scion's in a really good position. The issue is it's always going to suffer from balancing, because you're having to micro balance so many different things, 7 different classes, or 6 different classes times 3. You micro balance 18 different subclasses, along with the positioning of the tree. The way the current thing is designed, it's never going to be even. That's basically the gist of it. There's no way they're going to be able to make Scion really be super fair. Something's always going to be better, something's always going to be really worse. There's some, like, I don't know anybody who's playing Scion and picks up Saboteur, because why would you? Why would you ever do that? Why would you ever go Saboteur and then something else? You wouldn't. You would just go Saboteur. It just doesn't make sense. There's a lot of things that lend themselves to the situation. It's also the problem with Threshold Jewels, is that there's either a clear-cut best or clear-cut worst. Nothing really changes mechanics of things, which is problematic. Because that doesn't promote build diversity. That just promotes, like, build segregation. You have the good builds, you have the medium builds, and you have any other build in the middle that will work if you just throw enough currency at it, pretty much. That's where Scion lays for a lot of these subclasses. Like Juggernaut having can't be chilled is fine, but what Scion builds picking Juggernaut that wouldn't just go Juggernaut? What else is they benefiting from? Nothing. That's the whole point. So that's Scion in a nutshell. I don't know what I would like to see, because that's why I figured I'd talk about this one first, because I think it's in its current state, impossible to balance in any real way. But I think it's also fine as is. They would just have to, every now and then, ice frog the situation and make just like one really good, one really bad, one really good, one really bad, and just kind of go back and forth. And be like, all right, the league is 2.5. This league will have this 6 be good, and then everything else be shit. All right, next league we'll switch it up, and then just do it like that, because at the moment, it's kind of just more, she's like hyper effective in a lot of things. Because even starting the path of things often only shaves you a couple nodes. Let's do Duelist, because that's the next one alphabetically, and we'll start with Slayer. Slayer is very, very strong. It is almost the bar none choice for most two-hand RT melee or two-hand melee in general. And this is because of a combination of just these top 4. I don't know really a single build that chooses Impact or chooses Overwhelm. But yeah, the reason you choose Slayer is because you have 20% call, perma onslaught, overleeching, and immune to bleeding, immune to stun, and just a lot of leech fucking central. That's what Slayer offers, and it offers it great. Better than anyone else, matter of fact. It's kind of hard to beat 20% call for a lot of builds, because that's 20% more damage. But it's actually better than 20% more damage. And the reason it's better is because it's starting the fight basically with the boss at 80%. And the reason it's better than 20% more damage is because imagine you're doing a boss and you were to die at the last 17%, and I just had 20% more damage. Well, I can still die at 17% of the boss. I can still be fighting Shaper, and I can still die at the last 1%. It's like all those classic WoW raids, you still die at the last 1%. Not the case with Banned Legends. If they're called, they're called. That's it. That's why it's better, because oftentimes the most difficult mechanics in boss fights normally engage at a third of the boss fight. Bigger examples being Shaper. The really biggest fuck you example is Uber Zaro, who doesn't even come out at more than 33% life, so you just kind of do like 13%, he's done. Slayer's great. That's basically where Slayer is. The problem is, Ascendancy have these 4 branching things that are often the best, and then, little sad babies on the side. Overwhelm is strictly used for builds that are, I guess, attempting to really invest in the stun, which it's not a thing. It's why would you ever stun an enemy when you can just kill the enemy? Basically the school of thought. So if you're playing a nice little meme build, sure, it's there, but at the moment it's more of just a joke. Impact is like melee splash, but worse, because you're trading off either overleeching or 20% more damage in AoE for this. And any build that we're using melee splash is pretty much a dual wield build. Seldom you're going two-hand melee splash. So you just choose a better option, which is Gladiator, which is what we're going to talk about next. So for Slayer, for what I'd like to see in the future, it's kind of hard for any of these things. I would just like to see better balancing. I think that 20% is probably a little too strong. I think if it was 10%, it'd still be a pretty strong contender. Honestly, it would just bring it in more in line with the melee classes. Gladiator is also pretty fucking dank, but it too suffers from a kind of similar situation here. So this is often the path chosen for Gladiator, but it's at least more flexible. But you notice it's actually has a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's only got 10 versus the traditional 12 that a lot of the other ones have. So it's actually missing some versatility and options. I mean, you're only ever not choosing one route, So it's kind of odd that they made choose like that decision. But Gladiator is really good because it offers a lot of block, 100% of block chance to apply to spell blocks. So it's a nice little safety net. But again, makes it pretty much mandatory, kind of like 20% call for Slayer, just mandatory. So past that, you have the ability to gain frenzy charges and endurance charges, again, and 10% more damage and reduced fizz damage. Feels pretty mandatory also. And same with gratuitous violence, which is attacks cause bleeding, not important. 30% increased damage is pretty negligible. It's increased. It's additive, not more multiplicative. But the bleeding kills exploded enemies. There's the money shot. There's the fucking right in the face. It's 10% explosion of enemies on death. Really boosts your clear speed. It's like Impulses. It's like Detonate Dead. It's like the new bubonic plague trail boots. Yeah, it's good. But DDing enemies is really strong, especially when you're upping your clear speed, because it makes things chain reacts. If you kill the rare in a pack, it'll pretty much explode, killing everything else. Past that, you have the option of Blood in the Eyes. More bleeding, reduced damage from bleeding enemies. That's just 6% reduced damage, period, pretty much. Chance to attacks to maim on hit. A little bit redundant because you're going to be getting, probably using maim a lot of the builds, or if you're using Tomb Fist, you have maim, or if you're using Vuln, kind of got maim there. Increased damage with hits and ailments, which doesn't matter for ailments because no one's igniting against bleeding enemies. So it's just a little bit damage, more bleed chance, but you already probably capped bleed. And honestly, any Glad build is attacking like 10 times a fucking second. So as long as you even have 20% chance to bleed, which you're already getting 25 there, and you're going to get more in tree just by default. So you'll probably have about 40% chance to bleed on hit. They're all fucking RT. And even if they're not RT, you're going to have at least 90% accuracy. So as long as one of their next 10 attacks per second hits, they're going to be bleeding. So it's really redundant to get more than just like 50%, bleed. So then the other option you have is Violent Retaliation. Pretty much just gives you fizz damage if you've blocked a hit, which is pretty often. And then for each hit you've blocked, movement speed, increased damage for each hit you block. So you're blocking pretty often. So this just gives you the most damage. That's pretty much why it's chosen. You can honestly just choose the little micro nodes if you really wanted to. But pretty much just Violent Retaliation. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with Gladiator. Again, it just suffers from necessity picks. I don't know any Glad build that's not picking these right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Maybe I miscounted earlier. Yeah, so pretty much I don't know any Glad build that doesn't pick these 6. But I'd like to see more diversity, potentially. Because at the moment, this is pretty much dead. And most of them are picking this. But the problem is, like, it's a bit redundant because of Blood Rage also. Next up is Champion. Champion is probably one of the worst classes, period, at the moment. And it's pretty fucked. Because, again, this is going to be the theme of the whole video, suffers from mandatory pick syndrome. I don't know who's going champion that doesn't pick Fortify, because, yeah. So there you're already down 4 points. So after that, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing with champion? It was pretty much used for the taunt, curse and hit support build, in which case you're going to go for the taunt shit. If you're not, then you're going for inspirational, because it's the biggest buff. Even then, you don't have to get worthy foe, but yeah, you're pretty much pigeonholed into getting Fortify plus. Am I playing support? Alright, I'm getting worthy taunt. I'm not playing support. Alright, I'm getting these two. That's how it is. Even then, these aren't that good. These low life effects aren't really going to save you, and that's not enough damage. It would have to be like 40% increase, like more damage when on low life. And even then, I don't know who would use it aside from. Maybe it'd be kind of funny because maybe you'd see a spring up of like a low life blood magic Shavs build going champion just for 40% more damage, but it's not safe, so it'd be kind of funny, yeah. Because also they have things that when you reach low life, right? So you can't just be at low life for the elemental status to be removed. They can make it similar for a fat more damage multiplier. So like 40% more damage when you reach low life for 10 seconds. So it just means like when you get hit really low, you're doing a fuck ton of damage, and then you're back up. And then you could have like those Asians that will be like macroing their builds. So they're just floating between low life and not low life. So they're just getting a permanent 40%. But I think it'd be kind of cool because then the game really should reward playing to that level of skills. That I like that as an idea. Inspirational is just like, it's lazy, just here's some more damage. Doesn't really have any flavor to it. And then taunt is what it is. But overall, mandatory pick syndrome just occurred again. Have to pick Fortitude if you're playing champion, so makes it kind of feel shitty. Next up is Marauder. Alright, we got Juggernaut. Juggernaut is in a very good place right now. There is one real problem with Juggernaut, and that is it has no way of mitigating elemental damage, really. But that's not really Juggernaut's fault. It's more just Endurance Charge's fault. Juggernaut actually has a pretty nice spread of utility, and I think it's one of the most well-balanced classes, because a lot of builds pick all the different ones, and that's really good. That being said, I think that it also has the most flavor, because you are a Juggernaut, You know, you have the stuff like can't be slowed below base movement. I am unstoppable, unbreakable, can't be stunned. Our double armor from chest, undeniable, meaning I will fucking hit you. I have 1,000 flat accuracy and scaling of attack speed per accuracy. Attack speed scaling isn't the greatest, but that is what it is. Unflinching is the endurance charge when hit, plus one max endurance charges, and unrelenting, meaning when you get hit, there's a chance that instead of having one endurance charge, it goes to your max, which is probably going to be like 8 or 10 or something. And then, of course, you have the Fortify, increased damage, and Life Regen, increased Fortify effect on you. So, overall, it's actually pretty well balanced, I think, Juggernaut. You could make the argument that pretty much every build will be getting Unrelenting, and it's true, but I've actually seen some that don't, because there are some attack builds, like a lot of staff attack builds will just go the accuracy route. They have enough damage, they have enough AoE. What do they want? I want to be able to not be fucking slowed, I want to not be able to get stunned, and I want to be able to not miss my hits. So I'm getting that. Plus, I get endurance charge when hit, so at least it gives me some mitigation. Builds do go this. You know, it is well balanced. I would say Unyielding is a little bit far behind, and so is Unbreakable, but again, that falls on the fault of armor being shit, and endurance charges not being able to mitigate. Elemental damage is meh. But yeah, Unyielding is a little bit behind. Overall, though, it's still okay. You're still getting like 2% life regen, pretty much, because you're going to be playing a build probably that has Fortify up all the time, if you're picking up Unyielding. And because of that, I think it's pretty fair, pretty balanced. Wow, isn't it exciting to get one done that's not taking 20 minutes to fucking talk about? Alright, on to Berserker. This is another heavy candidate of mandatory pick syndrome. Show me a Berserker build that is not getting Aspect of Carnage. Doesn't exist. Just doesn't exist. The only ones, and even then, if you're not picking up Pain Reaver, it's because you're playing War Chief Totems, which case you're doing that. But also, I would say there's not really any build that doesn't pick up Warbringer anymore, or Berserker build. They're pretty much all picking up Warbringer as is. It's hard. It kind of replaces the need for a flask in a lot of situations. You just put it on spacebar every 2 seconds, you get 25% of your life and mana back. It's a bit gross. And if you weren't going that route, you could do Cloaked in Savagery, although Cloaked got hit pretty fucking rough with the Valpak nerf. Valpak not being instant anymore, it being double rate. Really took a shit on Cloaked, but if you're playing a Bloodseeker build, the instant Leech Claw build, Cloaked is still fine. This just needs more diversity, for sure. Because, again, 9 out of 10 builds, 99 out of 100 builds, this is their 6 points for Berserker. And then past that, doesn't really matter. Some of them even pick a Rite of Ruin. Some of them, if you've killed recently, attack speed. If you haven't killed recently, so if you're doing a boss, it is 25% increased attack speed, pretty much. You know, a lot of these things that say haven't killed recently, just you can interpret it as, oh, is this a boss that has no ads? Is this basically Shaper when he's in his main phases? Or is this basically Uber Red 3 when he's in his main phases? Yep, okay, this is a 25% attack speed node. And guess what? That's a lot of fucking attack speed. So it's a lot of damage. Berserker needs diversity more than anything. I would say Aspect of Carnage, again, is kind of lazy design. Maybe they can replace Aspect of Carnage with some sort of stacking damage buff that also increases damage. Instead of kind of just having this 40% more, you can have it be a ramp-up mechanic, meaning, you know, for every enemy you killed, it stacks up to like 50 times or something like that. 1% more damage done, you know, 0.4% more damage taken, and then just make it so it's like you really are berserking. You know, if you're a Berserker, I would think you wouldn't just come out the gate being crazy. He's supposed to be kind of like a bloodlusted motherfucker, right? So you'd think he's just builds on his anger. I'm just trying to think, it's kind of like build like Wolverine. So, you know, the more you kill, the stronger you get kind of type situation, which is kind of just like the Rampage mechanic. But honestly, you can for sure just tie in the Rampage mechanic with Berserker. If you were to replace Aspect of Carnage with you gain Rampage, I would think it's still being picked pretty heavily, because that's just sweet. It also almost makes more sense than just having this, you know, more thing. And they can even make it so you gain Rampage on kill after killing 20 enemies or something. Like it just like it procs like normal Rampage, but even make it more thematic or something. So there's definitely lots of wiggle room there. All right, finally we got Chieftain. Chieftain is a little bear boy. I would say it's not the worst subclass at the moment, but it's probably tied for the bottom 3. It's not that it's bad. It's bad in the fact that it has a insanely niche application, and that mainly one build in the entire game was going to really play it. And that build is RF Totems, and no one plays RF Totems anymore. Chieftain pretty much just does that. It makes your totems immune to fire damage. It gives them armor, taunt, like reflect, and all this shit, but it's just not good. It's just not good. Some people do War Chief as Chieftain, but it's just worse, strictly worse than like anything else. Life, like all the micronodes are pretty much just life regen, totems. Like the second you touch these, so these 4 are already just totem. You're not playing anything that's not totems there, right? This one, you were your totem, kill a burning enemy. Chance for your totems. Alright, you're back to being totem. This one is gained to, if you or your totems have killed recently. So that doesn't apply to your totems. Oh, 1% damage leached per totems leached. Okay, back to being totems. Everything's fucking totem related. So you've already accepted the fact that Chieftain is going to be the totem guy. So why is he not the best totem subclass? Why is that the case? Because it's balanced shit. You're making your totems defensively tanky. All this shit is still worse than Berserker just giving you 40% more damage. The numbers just don't add up. I don't really know what they're doing, really. So you have this one that's 40% armor, 10 all res, reduced mana cost, increased strength. Pretty worthless for 2 points. You know, 20% cull is 2 points on Slayer. Not being able to be, like, preventing move speed is 2 points on Juggernaut. It's just, you have to equate these to other things in the game that are also 2 points. It just seems worse, because it is worse. Namahu Flame's Advice, increased damage when hits. This is basically a travel node. It's a garbage travel node. Chance to ignite is a useless thing at the moment, so poop. So anything around your totem does less damage and takes more damage. Again, it's a travel node. Nothing really there. So then I get to the first unique thing on the list. Totems are immune to fire damage. That's a pretty big blanket statement. This just means that RF doesn't do damage to them. They have 50% increased armor. They don't have a ton of armor in the first place, so that's whatever. Skill used by your totem have a 20% chance to taunt on hit. Well, RF isn't a skill used by the totem, so it can't hit, so it can't taunt. So who else is using that? No one. Totems reflect 15% of their maximum life as fire damage to nearby enemies when hit. Okay, so that reflected fire damage probably hits, meaning it can probably taunt, so I guess that works together. But it's cool thematically, but so far we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points deep in this tree, and we've first found the first node that actually makes sense. Well, I guess I'll try to go to these 2. Oh wait, I have to path through this? Okay, so that's already now I'm down to 2. So it's like, it's just these mandatory path nodes. A lot of these things almost suffer from being poorly placed. You know, if this connected off of this, it'd be better. I think. You'd probably be better. You still have to go through here to get to that, but at least you have, like, more options. Honestly, I feel like I wish all of these were just 2 branches off the middle. Because this just means you're gated to get this shitty node because you want to try to get into these. Maybe I want to get both of these. You can't get both of these. There's not enough points. This is mandatory. This is pretty much mandatory for any totem build. So now you're just gutted on the sides. Fire damage leeches life. That applies to your totems, not to you. Damage penetrates, 10% fire is. That applies globally. Damage dealt by your totems is leeched to you. That's a gimmick mechanic, if anything. That's not enough. That's really going to make a difference. 20% of physical damage is extra fire damage if you or your totems have killed recently. Good, but it means it's shit for bossing because you're probably not going to be killing anything really recently. But it's okay. It's an okay node. Max life regen per endurance charges. Endurance charges? I'm not Juggernaut. I'm not the endurance charge class. What does that matter for me? It doesn't really. Can't be ignited. Applies to you, not the totem, so you can still run RF. When you or your totems kill a burning enemy, which is anytime RF will kill anything, 20% chance for you or your totems to gain endurance charge. Ooh, and my totems, but how do I get my totems to be past 3 endurance charges? They can get charges now? It's like a... Yeah, it is what it is. There's like a lot of questionable things in Chieftain, but I think, it just suffers from just dead nodes. Like, pretty much past this is like what you need, and you're going to go that for a lot of RF builds. You could go that too, but that doesn't really make sense for RF, so it's pretty much linked to War Chief. But then you're probably not going to go that for War Chief if you're doing this, so why are you playing War Chief in the first place? It's, yeah, it's mandatory, and then just a bunch of trash. Chieftain needs a massive overhaul, basically. Alright, let's go on to Raider, which is Ranger. Raider is quite strong at the moment, but again, it suffers from an even... This is the worst case of mandatory pick syndrome. Show me a Raider build that grabs any of this shit over here. You wouldn't. Why would you? I've already established, so Raider getting from Quartz Infusion, it's a bit convoluted, but chance to dodge is what it is. You have phasing while at max range charges. You have phasing while you have onslaught, gain phasing for 4 seconds on kill. Meaning if you have onslaught, you have phasing, and if you have phasing, you have immune to status elements and move speed. So if you just use one silver flask, you get phasing, which gets you onslaught because it's a silver flask. So that's why you have the phasing. Then you have immune to status ailments, and then the damage and the move speed, and then the dodge chance. So one onslaught flask gives you all of this, which you're going to have up all the time because you're killing shit. And then you have just fuck you frenzy charges and attack speed and move speed. That's pretty much Raider is. Raiders is one of the best in the game because at the moment Abyss Jewels and early attack builds are so fucking good. Then it begs the question, what do these other 4 points do? Rapid Assault. Increased attack damage. That's not a lot. That's less than just 40%. You're doing all Ellie pretty much for every build. Poop. Onslaught on kill. Why do you need Onslaught on kill? You have it on a flask. Why do you have to wait for the kill? Increased Onslaught effect. Attack damage during Onslaught. More chance to evade melee attacks during Onslaught. More chance to evade projectiles. Evasion's just not that safe. It's a great mechanic. You know, stacking layered defenses is great. Being a build that has high evasion, phase acro, 6k life, you're not going to get killed pretty often. It's pure chance to not be hit. It doesn't... Evasion checks against your opponent's attacks and chance to hit and stuff like that. Dodge is dodge. You're just dodging. If I have this, it's just a pure chance to dodge. But that says evade. It means it's not as good, basically. This comes down to these being better. This lets you maintain frenzy charges during a fight. When you hit a rare unique enemy, so that's bossing, you're at max frenzy charges, and this just gives you so much value per frenzy charge. There's no reason that you would pick the other two. But even then, all Raider is just like a worse Pathfinder. Pathfinder's just better at the moment. It always has been until they make flasks like really shitty. Pathfinder will always be just better than Raider. Raider's like a really easy lazy man pick. If you don't want to click buttons, Raider's the way to go. The only thing that really could do to Raider, as far as the Ascendancy specific, would be to either... I don't think these specifically need being nerfed. They just have to bring this either more in line or just change it altogether. Maybe change the chance to evade to chance to dodge. Even then, it's still pretty shit. You're going to have to do something pretty monumental. Either nerfing frenzy charges or buffing this to make this a more enticing choice. But even then, Raider's only good if Ellie attack builds are good, and Ellie attack builds will never be as good as they are right now, in my opinion. Even though Abyss Jewels are being added to the game, I don't see Raider going unscathed if Abyss Jewels go unchanged. Let's do Pathfinder next. Pathfinder is by far the best Ranger subclass, and it's been one of the best subclasses in the game since it came out. It's fucking insane because they keep making insane flasks. You have Wise Oak, you have Taste of Hate, you have Cinder Birth, you have, Roomies, even Roomies, yes. If you have all the flask effect, if you have a Wretch belt, if you have all the flask effect nodes in the tree, the ones that matter. Pretty much just Druidic Spirit and Primal Spirit are the ones you really get. Also, you get Herbalism if you want that fat fucking life regen, a life flask. You get that shit, you get Flask on Belt. Your flask go banana sandwich. I mean, everyone gets Master Alchemist, everyone gets Nature's Adrenaline. That's pretty much what it is. And then most every build gets Veteran Boyer. I don't really know any builds that get Master Surgeon anymore. It's just, you don't need it for bossing. And Master Herbalist is a very similar situation. You're not really doing poison, because poison is not good, so Master Herbalist isn't good. If poison got buffed, maybe it'd be good again. Surgeon was only really good for Blade Vortex, but they nerfed it so it says gain a flask charge. So it's just one individual charge on a flask when you deal a crit, versus everything gains a charge. So you have 5 different flasks, so it's 150 effect. It used to be pretty much. And it does stack with Surgeon mods, but they nerfed Surgeon mods in general. Surgeons used to be a 100% chance on crit to gain a flash charge. Now it's a 20% chance. So this is like the 6 that pretty much everyone picks. Veteran Boyer is Fizz as random element, and then damage penetrates element. So if you're a regular Ellie build, you just get 10% Ellie pen. Great. Fucking insane. If you're a Fizz build, you get 10% damage, and you get the Ellie pen. Also insane, because pretty much every build goes Fizz to Ellie conversion. 100%. No reason not to. It's just better at the moment. Then on top of that, everything you kill that are affected by ailments, which is going to be everything you kill, you're getting 100% increased flasks. Your flasks are always fucking up. So you're walking around just in full flask god mode. Nature's Boon, flash charge every couple seconds, 20% chance for charge not to consume any charges at all. Master Alchemist, meaning if you pop any flask, full status ailments, 40% damage, and you have 20% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite. Pretty much the only one that matters are freeze and shock. Everything you kill is going to be shattered, meaning your Held of Ice is proccing, meaning your Assassin's Mark is going everywhere. Everything's fucking shocked. If you're wearing a pulse, everything goes like boom, boom, boom. it's just insane. That's why Pathfinder is so strong. It is just overall insanely good for a lot of builds. And then you have Nature's Adrenaline, meaning if you have your Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline, meaning your increased effect Quicksilver, meaning movement flask, with Adrenaline, meaning even another movement roll on it. Basically, you pop this flask, you give yourself like 150 move speed. That's why you're moving a mile a minute. So Pathfinder's fine. Nothing really needs to be buffed or nerfed about him. It's just flasks are too good. And Master Surgeon's pretty dead at the moment. There's no really scenario where you don't, like, usually this matters. I don't think anyone's even picking it. And Master Herbalist is pretty fucking garbage, but that's just predicated on poison being garbage. Even if poison was better, the Chaos Resonating Flask effect is meh. Poison duration is nice, poison damage is nice, but it's only 20%. And 60% chance to poison on hit. This kind of goes back to the bleed on hit thing, where you're attacking so fast with the majority of these builds that you don't need that high of an effect. It's better for poison, because poison stacks infinitely versus bleed only just refreshing the cooldown. Unless, of course, you have where is it? Crimson Dance, where bleed stacks to 8 times. That's a little bit different scenario, but yeah, chance to hit on poison is better, but it's still kind of redundant. Deadeye is the weak boy. It's the Lenny of the group. It's the one that doesn't even make sense. So, problem with Deadeye is, why would you play Deadeye over Pathfinder or Raider? You wouldn't. But let's just say, argument's sake, you want to. What does Deadeye offer that the others don't? Okay, skills chain 1 time. Nice. It gives you additional chain that can be pretty useful. Light Poacher's getting chained so it can't pierce but it can chain fork. Man, that makes it so Light Poacher has free chain. That's probably one of the best applications. What's the travel node like? 30% damage, 30% speed, 10% attack speed. That's garbage. Why would you... That's so, like, no flavor, just baby stats. It's almost like a micro node, but just a little bit bigger. I don't even know. So let's just look at the bottom one time. You have Powerful Precision. Attack projectiles return to you after hitting targets. Projectiles have a 100% increased crit chance against targets they pierce. Projectiles pierce all nearby targets. So anything near you gets pierced, and then they have a 100% crit chance because after it pierced it, then it had a 100% crit chance. And then projectiles return to you doesn't really work with Fork Chain Pierce a lot of the time. Like, a lot of those things, they don't interact well. Abilities just can't return to you. But it works for TS, it works for a few things, so it's kind of good. But you're pretty much just using it for, what? A little bit more AoE, a little bit more clear speed. But you're already going chain, so if they're chaining, they're not piercing, because they have to chain first. So you have to hit an enemy once, it has to hit something, go to something else, pierce through that, then it's going to return back from there. In what situation between your Herald device and the amount of times you're attacking is it already not going to kill the pack? Like, how many times you have to fucking hit a pack before you kill it? It's too much. Now we have Far Shot. Is there any Ascendancy node that is less words? Far Shot, and the text reads Far Shot. It gives you Far Shot. Just means you do more damage the farther away it is. Fine. That's good. No problems there. So now you're pretty much, everyone's picking those two. What is the last one? Fires an additional projectile. Nice. 50% AoE. Nice. Accuracy. Nice. Not all projectile things have AoE, so that could be a dead stat. So, but if you're using Tornado Shot, you get an additional projectile AoE chain. Nice. So then, why would I not choose that? It even has accuracy on it. What do we got for Rupture? Attacks have a chance to bleed. Okay, so that doesn't do a whole lot unless you're scaling it up. 4% crit multi against bleeding enemies. That's a lot of damage. Crit chance against bleeding enemies. That's not a lot. Moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage. That, I'm still taking the initial damage though, so what the fuck? Overall, I would say that even if you don't get that, which I don't know who wouldn't get that, you're suffering again from mandatory node syndrome. Rupture is too weak. Powerful Precision too weak. Deadeye's in an okay place, but it's just going to get overshadowed by Raider and a plethora of other things. So they have to either bring them down to bring him in more line, but you got a few options. But you know, there's some wiggle room there. I had to go get some fucking orange juice because I was losing my voice, just rambling on over here. All right, next up is Shadow. Let's do Assassin first. So Assassin suffers from a pretty simple problem. Everything Assassin does is heavily related to crit and poison, because poison and bleed, I should say, because poison and bleeds aren't good. Toxic delivery isn't good. Noxic strike isn't good. So you're not choosing those 4. The other side is crits and crit chance and crit multi. Multi's great. Best way of scaling probably crit damage in the game, aside from just massive more multipliers. Problem is there's so many ways to get not only more crit chance between the addition of Shaper, Elder, Essence items, but you have the Pure Talent Jewel, the Watcher's Eye Jewel. Getting base crit isn't hard, especially when Scion's Assassin offers 1.5 base crit. So Deadly Infusion becomes a lot worse, because the biggest thing it gives you is base crit and minor power charge generation. The multi isn't a large amount for any way of saying. So you're stuck going ambush, which is fine, but it basically just gives you more damage. The problem is, like we talked about earlier, you don't need more damage anymore. Damage is in abundance. The issue is quality of life, application of damage in AoE settings normally, massive amounts of single target, move speed. That type of shit is what you want. If anything, you want blanket defenses. So all the builds that win Assassin just really don't go Assassin, because why would you? It gives subpar damage and you already have insane damage. That's all it offers. So it's just needs a complete overhaul, in my opinion. Maybe if poison got better, toxic delivery would become mandatory again. But even then, poison scaling got worse because of how it doesn't scale with more multipliers. You have to get perfect agony, and then it's already having just shitty damage, but you have to, because you have to. So that's just pigeonholed into doing this, but it's not good anymore if you don't do it. So Assassin does nothing. It requires a complete overhaul. Kind of how I feel about Chieftain, honestly, as is. Trickster is a pretty fucking swanky little Ascendancy, because it solves the problem that Assassin presents. What do you do when you have more damage than you ever need, which is the state of path at the moment? You go for quality of life. And Trickster offers just some sexy quality of life. Biggest one, Walk the Aether. Movement skills cost no mana. Increase attack and cast if you use a movement skill recently. Meaning if you shield charge, if you whirling blades, it costs nothing and you go faster. Isn't that great? It's honestly almost worth it just for that. But wait, there's more. Swift Killer. Free frenzy and power charge generation. And it also means they do extra dot damage. And you get +1 of each. Huh, how nice is that? You just get to walk around with 4 frenzy and 4 power charges all the time. And frenzy charges are just more damage and more attack speed. Power charges are just more crit chance. And guess what? If you get, this little thing over here, they also offer spell damage. Not to mention that for dot damage. But wait, there's more. Patient Reaper. Increased damage over time. What if not a dot build? Increased recovery of life, mana, and ES if you've killed an enemy affected by your damage over time recently. Okay, that does nothing. But if I'm a crit build and I have any fire damage, they will get ignited. Means they've been affected by damage over time. Means if they do die, I now gain increased rate of life, mana, and ES recovery. So this actually could affect pretty much any build that even has minor amounts of fire damage. Even running added fire gem, that's enough fire damage to ignite something. If a little bit of poison, it's enough pointed damage. But wait, there's more. Ghost Dance and Shade Form. What does this give you? Well, it just gives you dodge, movement speed on ES recharge, and a nice little buffer of evasion, attack speed, and all sort of stuff. Not super good. Really, it just boils down to this core 4. But even then, this is a lot just nicer than what Assassin offers as far as how it is. And it's just the quality of life that a lot of builds want. Not to mention Pay Free does have a lot of regen. You could go Weave the Arcane if you have really bad mana problems. So yeah, it just solves the problems that a lot of builds have. It's quality of life, it gives you movement speed, it gives you charge generation, can give you some mana, can give you some minor defenses. It's in a really nice place. I think that Weave the Arcane is by far the weakest of the things here. Shade Form is not amazing, but 250 flat ES is still pretty nice. Going hybrid is actually better now than it's ever been, probably. Well, maybe not ever been, not since the Cloak of Defiance days, but it's pretty fucking sweet. So because of that, Trickster's in a nice spot. You could go Trickster in a lot of builds just because you just want to go Trickster and you want to just feel the comfort of going Trickster. And that is completely fine. So Trickster, A-okay. Saboteur. Saboteur, much like Chieftain, out the gate is just hyper niche. You don't play Saboteur unless you're playing Trap and Mind build. Even then, some Trap and Mind builds don't play Saboteur. Crazy, isn't it? Just like no totem builds play Chieftain. But Saboteur actually offers things that are beneficial to Trap and Mind builds, which Chieftain does not fill that gap. It fills the gap that it's like what Chieftain should be, and even then it's still not good enough for a lot of things. So, you have mandatory 4 points. Again, it's just how it is at the moment. But if I'm playing a trap build, you go chain reaction. If I'm playing a mine build, I go demolition specialist. Why is that? Can have up to 2 additional remote mines placed at a time. I gain 8% damage for each trap, 8% AoE for each mine, 10% chance for traps to trigger an additional time. So it's let you place additional mines and do a little more damage, a little bit more AoE. Let you place chance for traps to just go off again, which is pretty cool, and then a little bit more damage there. So overall, it's offering you some pretty hot shit. And the nodes effort are even better. Trap down. Trapper cooldown recovering speed. Biggest problem for traps. Second biggest problem for traps is that sometimes I throw down 5 traps, only one of them gets touched. Chain reaction makes it so when your traps trigger, your nearby traps also trigger. So you just have to have one trap go off and they all go off. That is what makes this so fucking good. It solves a big quality of life issue for traps. Not to mention, give you some more damage, more AoE. So, we have for mines, mine laying speed if I've detonated recently. Means if you're just blowing mines off, they place them way faster. More damage, chance for placing additional mines, and 100% increased mine arming speed. Now, that's really important because all mine builds will get volatile mines, meaning they detonate instantly. So you're placing them instantly, they're arming instantly, and they're detonating instantly. So that's why you can do spell totem, detonate mines faster casting, and just spam mines, and they're just going to be going just going off instantly. That's what kind of causes and lends to that situation. So these are great. You have 4 more points. What are you going to do with them? You have you're never going to get the other one if you're getting one. If I'm going to mine build, I'm not going to pick up chain reaction. If I'm going to trap build, I'm not going to pick up demolition specialist. So I'm limited to these 6 options. I have 4 points. What do I want? Explosives expert. 10% of fizz damage as extra fire. Oh, nice. I'm playing any sort of fizz miner, which I don't even know who's doing that. But that's 10% more damage. Damage penetrates 10% L. Wow. Also 10% more damage. So this node can give me 10 to 20% more damage depending on what the fuck's happening. 10% reduced damage taken from traps and mines. Never gonna really matter. But the other thing, it's just damage, so I like damage. That's good. Good damage is good. Damage good. Past that, I have one option. This is the gripe I have with this. Because you're always gonna get this, and you're definitely getting one of these two, you have one option. Blinding Assault. Can't be blinded. Huh. That does nothing for me. 25% chance to create a smoke cloud when hit. Okay. 25% chance to blind enemies on hit. Okay, but I'm not hitting them. The mines are hitting them. That doesn't matter. So, yeah, this is like your only other option. Honestly, if I'm playing a trapper mine build, because I don't want Born in the Shadows, which is increased blind duration and reduced damage taken from... It's just blind. This is all blind shit. I pick up these little nodes. This is one of the few builds of this with why would I'd rather have 4 move speed and LE damage and increased placement speed and LE damage than the blind mechanic. That's the one problem with Saboteur, is you're pigeonholed into picking up the effective nodes and you're just like, what the fuck do I do now? I don't want to deal with the blind bullshit. Like, you need to have something else needs to be there. Just something. Either that or take these two and swap these two, so you have to go through Blinding Assault to get Explosives Expert. It's just, yeah, you just need to redo that. Because this just doesn't make fucking sense. Next up is Templar. Let's go for Inquisitor first. One of the big boys. One of the big boys. One of the bigger of the big boys. So, Inquisitor, again, 100% pigeonholed into getting 4 nodes, and those 4 nodes are Inevitable Judgment. You play Inquisitor because Inevitable Judgment. There's no reason to play Inquisitor aside from Inevitable Judgment. Inevitable Judgment is pretty simple. Critical strikes ignore enemy monster resistances. Non-crits penetrate it. So it just makes it so shit you hit ignores res. It's just a lot of damage for any LE attack build, any critical attack build. And it also just says increased crit strike chance to get things that are affected by no statuses. So if I hit things for the first time, pretty much increased crit strike chance. Multi affected by statuses, meaning the second hit you're doing, big ass multi buff. So a lot of damage, a lot of multi, a lot of damage, a lot of multi. That's what this is giving you, a lot of damage. Past that, now we have 4 here, 2 there, 2 there. What do we want to do? Okay, Instruments of Virtue. Spell damage if you've cast recently. Attack damage if you've cast recently. Attack damage if you attacked recently. Cast speed if you've attacked recently. Attack, attack, cast. Meaning, attack speed if you attack recently. So if I use a movement skill, I move a little bit faster, and I gain some cast speed. If I use an attack, spell, attack... Okay, so pretty much what all this is going to give you is 20% move speed, or 20% attack speed after you use shield charge or whirling blades. That's what it's used for. It's good for that, and that's fine. And if you are casting, then you do gain spell damage. But overall, it's just a nice little movement speed buff. Oh, okay. Will not cross you off the list. So you have 2 more points. You can have Augury of Penitence. That's just enemies take increased damage. Nothing wrong with that. Nearby enemies deal less damage. Also nothing wrong with that. So that's just nice. And then the next option is 30% chance to create consecrated ground when hit. So that's you being hit. And I don't really like to do when hit effects because I try not to get hit. Consecrate ground you create grants 40% increased damage. 30% chance to create consecrate ground and kill. So everything you kill is be dropping consecrate ground. But, alright, so for argument's sake, let's just say I don't pick up Instruments of Virtue. I don't pick up Augury of Penitence, even though they're probably the better options. Let's just go down this path. Cannot be affected by elemental ailments while on consecrated ground. So everything I'm killing and being hit, I'm just trying to poop consecrated ground all over the place. I could run a flask that drops consecrated ground. It's a lot of consecrated ground. 6% of maximum mana and ES per second while on consecrated ground. Attack and cast people on consecrated ground. So I guess if I was face tanking something while on conc ground, it might be good. And that little energy shield, a little dip. But what if... problem with this is, if I'm already face tanking something, why don't I just want them to take more damage and deal less damage? And if I'm not going this deep with the consecrated ground, why don't I just pick up Instruments of Virtue? Yeah, see, that's the crux of the situation. Is that even it does something very specific, but what it does isn't even good enough compared to the 2 path. The 4 path is like worse than the 2 path here. So that's the issue. You're stuck behind that situation. That's what Templar or Inquisitor suffers from pretty much, is that this investment isn't even worth the outcome versus like this 2-point investment. So this needs to be either just reworked or just rebuffed or something. But yeah, it's not terrible. It's just worse in comparison, which is how a lot of things go. Hierophant is great. It's great. It's great. It's great. It suffers from minor balance issues, but overall, it's great. Pretty much any Hierophant build is picking up Sanctuary of Thought. This just means that 50% reduced mana cost of skill, and if you're at full ES, you have 100% reduced mana cost. Everything you cast is free. Fat fucking ES bubble off your mana. 10% additional Mom. Any build's going to be pretty much getting Minor Matter or Mom, meaning you're 30% of damage taken from mana. Well, this makes it 40% because you're probably going to grab that. So now you have a fat little mana bubble. So what do you want to get next? If I'm a totem build, I can get 2 additional totems. They're doing 7% less damage each totem, so it's 28% less damage, but I'm getting 2 totems. Overall, it is better. You're gaining damage from this. And it just gives me some more damage per totem if you've killed things, and attack speed. So all this is pretty good. What are my other options? 25% chance to gain endurance charge when you gain a power charge. 15% chance to gain a power charge if me or my totems kills an enemy. So it gives my totems power charges pretty much constantly. But the issue with this is the Hierophant is actually worse than the Scion Hierophant in a lot of other situations. And I'll show you why that is. So you have Illuminated Devotion. Skills from your helm penetrate 20% LA. That's what the helm is. 40% AoE in gloves and 2% leech in boots. Now we know from Elder Shaper items that you can get like 6-7 links in your helm, meaning more AoE or more pen. Gloves can also go 6-7 links for very specific things. And boots can go like 5 links with range attack totem. So you could do a scenario with range attack totem or something like that where you had it in your boots for leech, but then your totem's leeching, you're not leeching. So what does the Scion give for this that makes it better? The helm for Scion is an additional totem. Now, we've already established that you can have like 6, 7 like totems. That means you can have 3 of them with no drawbacks versus the drawback of having 7% less damage per thing. Not to mention you get the 10% mana as a bubble and the power charge when you place a totem, which is way better than power charge on kill. This means you playing a build, you could start the fight with max charges, and all you have to do is just place 1 totem to refresh it. It's 50% chance for any totem you place. You can just keep placing fucking totems. So overall, I would say Hierophant's in a good spot, but honestly, the Scion outshines it. As far as what Hierophant kind of does, the Scion just does it better. It's better for totems, and the bubble isn't as big, the mana issues aren't as big, but we just don't have the same mana issues we used to have anymore, so it's just not as important. So I think either if Scion doesn't get reworked, Scion's still the better Hierophant, but Hierophant is still a fine option. It just feels worse than Scion, because not only do we get to do the Hierophant of Scion, but we get to pick something else. Whether it be just more crit, or more damage, or more damage, or chieftain stuff for the little totem memes. You know, whatever the fuck we want, we have the versatility option there of going Hierophant plus something else. Plus, we get 7 passive points for doing that, and we get to start somewhere else. So it's just, yeah, it's a little bit behind, I feel like, considering. But it does offer quality of life and mana, and which is fine. I think it's fine. Guardian is quite niche. It's pretty much only used for defensive aura bots and for Righteous Fire. Again, that's fine. What it does quite well. Offers a bevy of little micro buffs. I think Guardian's actually pretty well balanced at the moment. So you have a block chance and a block chance, or additional block chance for 1 second every 5 seconds. Basically, you and your nearby allies can't percent if you block reasons. So a block immunity, a reduced effective curse, and removes elements, removes curses. Every 5 seconds, 30% of maximum life regenerated over 1 second. That's why RF would go it for a lot of things, because of time of need. And you and your nearby allies have 15% increased attack, cast, move speed if you use a war cry instantly. They're instant and cost no mana, so that's pretty nice. You can just go instantly popping off war cries and they cost nothing. Radiant Faith this is like the big one, is you gain armor equal to 160% of your reserved life, gain ES equal to 15% of your reserved mana. So you pretty much reserve a bunch of your life, a bunch of your mana. You're going to go low life. That way, your Radiant Faith gives you a bunch of armor and a bunch of ES for everyone around you. Not to mention Fizz damage reduction and life regen from Unwavering Faith. And then it says nearby enemies can't gain charges. You and nearby enemies share charges. So if you were to do conduit, it's like basically gives you conduit. So some of these are quite strong. Some of these are quite bad. I would say pretty much every build that's playing it is going to go in Wavering Faith. Maybe not RF, but every aura bot will be. Past that, you have a couple options. Time of Need is probably one of the better ones. Reduce the cursed effect, and then cleaning ailments and effects is quite nice for the regen. Especially if you have Zealot's Oath, it just keeps you alive. Because it does say a life regen, which means you could just put Zealot's Oath on, and then you could turn that life regen straight into some regen. What the fuck is Zealot's Oath now? There it is. You can turn the regen into ES regen instead. Nothing really crazy about Guardian needs to be reworked. I just think something like Harmony of Purpose, maybe Bastion of Hope, are a little bit out of touch with the other ones. But even then, they're not that far behind that it's like a major power gap, major problem. And again, it's such a niche application that I think it's fine overall. The difference between this being bad versus like Chieftain being bad or Assassin being bad is that, yes, there are obvious choices, but the gap between the obvious choices and the secondary choices isn't that large versus other ones. Like, it's still, some of these have applications, some of these do have niche applications, but some of them do have applications. So finally, we're on Witch. We'll do a Cultist first. Cultist is in a weird situation, but that's mostly because of CI being bad and ES being gutted. But what it gives you is Vile Bastion is probably one of the better ones. Can't be stunned while on full ES. A bunch of ES. ES regen is interrupted by damage. So it means if I get hit, I'm at half ES. I start recharging. I get hit again. Recharge does not stop. Normally it would stop. It does not stop. It stops when I get back to full. Vile Bastion gives me some ES regen. And it can't be stunned while on full ES. You're still going to have stun immunity. So it's a bit redundant, but yeah. Void Beacon. Nearby enemies have negative chaos res. And nearby enemies have less life regen. The life regen thing really doesn't matter, but the chaos res is pretty good. So if you're playing any sort of chaos build that is doing the damage in close proximity, that's it's just a lot more damage, because getting negative chaos res is a hard thing to come by. But also, a lot of mobs don't have chaos res in the first place, so it's a bit weird. Profane Bloom is a lot of fucking damage. They have a 20% chance to blow up, dealing a quarter of the damage, so 25% of their life as chaos, which then gets scaled up by your chaos damage. So if you had Void Beacon, that would actually do more damage. And enemies you curse take 10% increased damage. So if you're having any sort of blasphemy, they're going to be within range of that, meaning they're going to be in range of this, and they're going to get boom, boom, boom. Malediction, meaning you do extra curses when you kill an enemy. For each curse on that enemy, you gain 4% of non-chaos damage as extra damage. So it just means you gain more damage as chaos damage for everything you curse. Normally, cultists will be running 2 to 3 curses on a blasphemy aura and just be kind of sitting on things. So that's where that damage comes from. 10% chance to gain a power charge on crit, plus on power charge. I would say it's definitely far behind one on versus any of these. All these have pretty strong applications. And then you got fucking little Doink Boy over here just not quite keeping up. This needs to be brought more in line with the other ones. I would even say Vile Bastion's kind of far behind. The only reason that Vile Bastion is better is because that 0.5 regen per second is for each enemy you've killed recently. So if I kill 100 enemies, I have 50% ES regen. So that's actually quite noticeable, especially if you have Vile, if you have fucking Zeo, which you're going to have, Zealot. So yeah, I think Occultist is fine as is. It suffers from the meta being not in its favor more than the subclass being bad. But Forbidden Power just isn't good enough. It just isn't good enough because it's a thing that specializes in curses and you could just get Assassin's Mark and then you're fucking good. My voice is for sure going. It was already going this morning, but now it's really fucking going. Let's do Necromancer first because I want to yell about Occultist last, or Elementalist last. Necromancer is... it's a bit of a bottleneck situation. Again, you're pretty much playing always a summoner. You're going to be playing Necromancer. However, Necromancer is interesting because of the Scourge weapon that says most minion, increases and reductions of damage apply to you. Because of that, you can actually play Necromancer Scourge with a lot of builds now. It actually has a lot of diversity. So it's actually it's quite a nice class because of that. That being said, it's only a one mandatory thing, so it's not as bad. There isn't a single necromancer person who's not grabbing Mistress of Sacrifice, especially with the new Blood Offering chest. Increased effect of the duration on you, but your offerings affect you, meaning you would get that massive amount of block chance, massive amount of life regen, massive amount of attack speed. It's just giving you a massive fucking buff. Past that, if you're playing any sort of Spectre build, you're going to get Soul Weaver. You're going to get the Spectre things. And then you have Army of Darkness for any sort of Aura bot, because you're getting all the attack speed, all the increased damage, and then all the res. So it's just pretty fucking sweet. So now it's some good ones here also, like Fleshbinder does give you some fizz reduction. You'll probably have about 6 to 10 fizz reduction for your zombies. Spirit Eater says minions deal more damage, desecrate creatures from corpses, increase damage if you've consumed a corpse, and attack and cast speed for each corpse you've consumed recently. It's pretty much like you're going to be using your offerings quite often, and when you do use them, it could eat more corpses, giving you more damage. It's just a lot of damage. You're just giving yourself a lot of fucking damage, pretty much. Beacon of Destruction's the odd one out. I don't quite understand it, as far as who would be using it, or why it exists. Increased chaos damage is a nice little blanket buff. Nothing really wrong with that. Increased chaos res, sure. Minions have chaos res, also sure. Your minions spread Caustic Cloud on death, dealing 10% of their maximum life as chaos damage per second. You wouldn't really ever want your minions dying unless you're playing a build that forces your minions to die. So, you're playing a build that forces your minions to die. I don't know if minion instability, because their corpses are exploded, they're going to do both effects, but even if they did, that's just like a janky build in the first place. So it has extremely niche application towards a build that wants to their own, detonate their own corpses, their own zombies. Pretty much it's going to be, because you're never going to get enough life on anything but a zombie or a specter. Resummoning specters is just annoying as fuck. So you pretty much have the mirage or mirror arrows and like zombies. So if you're blowing up your mirrors and zombies, and you want to do more damage. It is a per second. I don't know how long the cloud lasts, but it's 10% of the maximum life as chaos damage per second. So it is a lot of damage overall versus instability is just 33% damage. That's the damage. This is per second. It could last a little bit. I don't know how long Caustic Cloud lasts. I'm just going to guess 4 seconds. So yeah, but it's janky. So Necromancer is fine. It's just, I think everything's pretty much in line. They've nerfed it enough, and the issues aren't so much that Commander of Darkness is too strong. Mistress of Sacrifice is quite good. Solver is quite good. I think Fleshbinder is a little bit behind even. If it was 1%, I'd rather be 0.5% damage reduction than 1% phys reduction. Because again, LA damage is the more prevalent damage, but yeah, it's fine. Just Beacon of Corruption is a little bit far behind for some reason. And finally, we have Elementalist, which, in my opinion, is the worst subclass in the game at the moment. And that is such a shame, but it completely got dicked down by the 2.1 patch notes and just the meta shifting in general. Elementalist is interesting because it does 3 basic things. It gives you Reflect immunity. It deals with Prolif and Elemental statuses, heavily being Ignite being the big one. And it deals with Golems. Golems got shit on, Ignite got shit on, and Reflect got effectively removed from the game. So what the fuck does she do? Good question. You have Pendulum of Destruction. So every 10 seconds, for 4 seconds, you gain a bunch of damage and a bunch of AoE. Cool. That's a bit weird to plan, but cool. Past that, this weird like Malachi's Simula thing where you penetrate cold damage. If I used a fire skill, I'd do Lighting of Cold. I don't know anyone really grabs that. I don't know why you would grab that. It's a bit gimmicky. Legions of Primordial, increase damage for each type of golem you have. Okay. Golems immune to elemental damage. Okay. Increase the buffs of golems. Okay. Can summon additional golem. Alright, so I'll get like 1 fire, 1 lightning. 50% increased damage, 20% attack and cast speed, and you know, I have 80% increased damage overall because of 2 different golems. There's a lot of damage. Leech still gives you a lot of damage, for sure. For sure. Shaper of Desolation, still pretty cool. You gain Shocking Night Chill on anything, but and then they spread their AoE, and the elements are a little bit better, but elements aren't really good at the moment because Ignite's not good. So what am I spreading? Freeze and shock? What's the point of freezing and shocking things if I can't even kill them? Like, it's just... It does... This class does nothing that another class does better. That's the biggest issue. Because when it comes to spreading elements, the only one that really mattered was Ignite. Like, spreading freeze and chill doesn't matter. You just Herald of Ice, Shatter, kill everything anyway. Like, Paragon is... Sure. You gain a little bit of damage, a little bit of reduction, but pretty much the only reason you got it was because of Reflect immunity. Reflect isn't an issue, so that's not an issue. I think they have to really just change that Reflect thing. They could, it wouldn't even matter, but they could make it so 50% reduced Reflect elemental damage taken and mortar damage taken, like from the elemental, the mortars and the fizz mortars, the one that the mobs that replaced Reflect mobs. Should make you take half damage from that. It wouldn't even matter, but at least it would give them a little bit of flavor or something. But yeah, Elementalist needs just like a complete overhaul if the meta doesn't change. If Ignite's good again, Elementalist will be good again. When Ignite's bad, Elementalist is bad. So it's a weird thing. Like, the second Ignite gets a little bit better, you're going to see the Elementalist, Flame Blasters fucking all over the place, just like they were last time. But as of now, it's just the damage isn't there, so the subclass isn't there. Alright, I think I've gone over every single subclass in some ranty way or another, talked about them, and what I'd like to see in their major problems and etc. I think I'm done for the day because my throat hurts. So I'm at Lighty. If you have any questions or comments, and I'm sure you do after this fucking long ass time, ask away. I'll see you guys next time. So Lighty bye. Lighty bye. Lighty out. Bye.